Let's talk a little bit about this Gaza situation. It was the big news story, I think it was earlier this week, where they reached a ceasefire, where the state of Israel and Hamas reached a ceasefire. They released the hostages, and Trump was, instrumental in making this happen. And he was letting everybody know that he was instrumental in making this happen. He was like a peacock, and kind of the big presentations. They had a lot of world leaders that were there. That was cool. I think it was great. I mean, I think it was great that they were able to settle that conflict to a degree, but still, it's only a ceasefire. It's not peace. It's not a settlement. It was just essentially hitting the pause button so hostages could be released. And as far as I know, not all the hostages have been released. I think there's still a few. I don't know if they're alive or dead that haven't been delivered back to Israel. I know that the number of, well, really not hostages, I guess from Israel's perspective, they're prisoners that were released. And I know the number released from Israel prisons was far greater than the number of hostages released from Gaza. And a lot of people are saying, well, you should be thanking Donald Trump for making this happen. And I'm like, I'm not a big Trump fan, but I'll give him this. Okay. We got a little bit of a reprieve, but I tell you what, I have no confidence this is going to hold. I mean, do you think this is going to hold, that the Palestinians and the Israelis are going to ever settle this? I've heard a lot of different points of view on it. And, Israel is one of the few nations that's essentially not allowed by the world community to essentially defeat their enemy. Like in World War II, America clearly defeated Germany and Japan. There were formal surrenders, unconditional surrenders in those cases. But it seems that in the Israeli Palestinian conflict, they can never get to that point. One side is never going to win. And in my opinion, that's a problem. I mean, because as long as one side never wins, as long as it's a stalemate, as long as we just get to ceasefires, it's never going to get resolved. I don't know if it'll ever be resolved in my lifetime. I think clearly we can point fingers at the Israelis, at the Jewish state. We can point fingers at Hamas and Hezbollah. It's a very complicated situation. But my main point here is saying, good on Trump for finding a way to get to a ceasefire, but I have no confidence it's going to hold up. And I don't know if you saw the segment where he was on Air Force One and he was being interviewed, and he was saying, hey, my goal here is to help rebuild Gaza. He goes, some people like the one-state solution. Some people like the two-state solution. And I'm not really worried about that right now. I'm mostly worried about whether or not we can rebuild Gaza. And so it just strikes me. It's kind of like when Gaza was first, being essentially bulldozed or carpet bombed. We saw Trump come out and talk about transforming Gaza into a Mediterranean paradise, into this luxury beach resorts, and really looking at this as a real estate opportunity. And I think he's still looking at it that way. I think that from his point of view, I'm not really even sure if he cares which side wins, just as long as he's able to profit off the opportunity. We'll see where this goes. But I was watching the news on the whole Gaza thing, and I just kept thinking, is he really celebrating internally? Is this for him a ceasefire, or is this really a real estate deal? And I think we're going to find out a lot more.